Everybody might be here. We got a stakes race for the New York Breds on Sunday at the Belmont at the Big A Medium. We're going to go with race number 3 here for the Sunday feature. It's a 9-horse field of New York Breds, but they're going to go early on the card, I suspect, because probably going to have a pretty strong favorite in this race. Let's take a look at this field of 9 right now. Again, this is a race for 3-year-old New York Breds. This is the spectacular bid division of the New York Stallion Series. The purse is $150,000. And the race is over 6 furlongs on the outer turf course. You can see from this field of 9 here, the horse down on the rail, the Big Torpedo, is most likely going to be a pretty strong favorite in this race. He is 0 for 2 on turf so far in his 6-race career, but he ran really well in both of those races, and that includes his most recent start, where he took on some open stakes horses going a 2-turn mile here at Aqueduct and took a pretty tough beat in that race. He ran really well, earning an 82 Beyer speed figure. Drawn to the rail here. This is sort of an interesting race, though, because while he is a legit horse to beat in here, there's a lot going on. We have a bunch of surface switchers in here. Some of these horses who have a lot of speed over on the dirt courses. We'll see if they bring it over. There are some horses that are bred to handle this surface switch as well. And you also have some horses with turf form in here who are supposed to be tough, but all of those horses are cutting back in distance to sprint here. So we'll see if that affects them. It sort of makes this race a little bit more interesting, if nothing else. You can see, again, the field of 9. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector before we get into it. Timeform US believes that this pace could be fast. I won't disagree too hard with that because there is some speed, again, mostly from the surface switchers. The horse they have out on the lead is one of those surface switchers. That's number 2. Heavyweight Champs, a horse who's run some really nice races on dirt. He can be a little bit hit or miss as far as his form goes, but his good race is pretty good. He's got a lot of early speed. He's going to try turf for the first time here for trainer Rudy Rodriguez, and he's also going to pick up Flavian Pratt for this race. That horse has speed, but there are other horses who you sort of suspect will be forward in here. Bustin' Away, who's also in this field, who's also a surface switcher in this race. He is the number 5. This is a horse who is 3 for 3, undefeated on dirt. He's had a lot of speed. He is 3rd off the layoff now, making this surface switch, and he also has a little turf pedigree. One of the horses cutting back in distance is the number 6, Fidelay Caillou, who just ran a bang-up race in the Jersey Derby, going a 2-turn mile over at Monmouth. He's been forward in his route races. We'll see what kind of position they can get with him as they cut him back to sprint here. And there are a couple of horses with speed to the outside in this race as well. So this pace could be fast. We'll see how it all plays out and whether it sets up the right way for a horse like the Big Torpedo. And we'll start off talking about the Big Torpedo. Number 1, drawn to the rail here. This is the horse to beat in this race. He's probably going to be a relatively strong favorite. The big question is the cut back in distance. Again, he's 0 for 2 on the turf. He debuted on this surface, going this distance here at Aqueduct, and he ran well that day. He was only second best. He just looked like a horse to me who was really ready to go first time out, and he ran his race. He was just second best that day. They switched to the dirt after that. Some pretty good results there. Broke his maiden in a blowout win in the mud. 2 starts back, earned a 78 Beyer. Went just missing in a pretty solid entry-level allowance race. He had a great trip in that race, and he had no excuse not to win. But it was a good field, and he ran a fine race there to be second best. Let's take a look at his most recent turf start. This is that Woodhaven Stakes, an open stakes race, 2-turn mile. He got rated back off of a pretty good pace in this race, but he made an early run around the final turn. 3-wide movement right by the winner, who was sitting on the rail, took this thing over in the stretch, and he was really game at the end of this race. Good Lord Laurie, the horse who's going to run him down, has some quality to him. He's had a perfect trip in this race, and he's going to come and get the Big Torpedo late, but all in all, this was a really good performance from the Big Torpedo. And again, the question is, does cutting back to 6 furlongs affect him at all? Because if it doesn't, he's supposed to be pretty tough in here. Heavyweight Champs is the 2. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He's the speed of the race, most likely. His good race is very good, and he can be a little bit in and out. His most recent start, Rudy tried blinkers on this horse over a dirt track that was labeled good. And to be honest, he just didn't run that well. He made the clear early lead like you expect him to do. He was really game through the stretch of that race as everybody came after him. And he refused to change leads for Luis Saez, and then he just got tired in the last 16th of a mile, and he got overhauled by the favorite, settled for 4th. There wasn't a great performance. We'll see if he can bounce back here. As far as the surface switch goes, he's by Solomini. It's early days yet for Solomini as a sire. It's not a big sample of turf horses, but so far the results aren't good. These horses have not been good on the turf. There is a little turf on the dam side here. This horse is a half to a horse named Looking to Strike, who was probably better on synthetic, but he won on turf. He earned a 90 Beyer speed figure sprinting on the grass. So maybe this horse will handle the turf, and if he does, his speed could make him dangerous. Retail Man is the number 3. He just, one of the horses who seems like he's in over his head. There's a little bit of turf pedigree here, and this will be his first time on the grass, but he just looks a little cheap. He's going to sit back in here and try to make one run at a very big price. Number 4 is Freedsdale. This horse is a little interesting for Linda Rice. Very lightly raced, a debut winner for Linda Rice while showing speed on the dirt. Ran pretty well in that race, earned a solid 77 Beyer speed figure, and he was clear under the wire. His only other start since then, he faced, you know, some of the best 3-year-old New York bred dirt and sprinters in the Times Square division of this New York Stallion Series, and he wasn't up for that. He finished a fading 4th in that race. But his debut suggested he can run a little bit. He's got a little bit of turf pedigree too. This sire, Redisdale, is a pretty new sire, but his horses have been running on the grass, and there's turf on the dam side of this pedigree. It's not like there's a ton of quality right up close, but the second dam is a sister to a Grade 1 winner on the turf. I think Freedsdale is going to handle this surface switch, and he's interested in here at a price for really good connections. Up next is Bustin' Away, the number 5. Again, this horse is undefeated, 3 starts on the dirt. Actually shipped to Saratoga to debut last summer as a 2-year-old. His only start as a 2-year-old. Shipped him to Saratoga to debut. Didn't take a ton of money in there, but he earned that win. He faced a good field that day. He went right to the front. He fought gamely through the stretch. He held on and pulled off a little bit of an upset. Really good performance there. He's 2 for 2 since he's come back from the layoff up at Finger Lakes, and his figures are going the right way. He's by Bustin' Stones. They handle the turf. He's out of a Galileo mare. There's mostly dirt performance on the dam side, but it seems like there's enough turf pedigree in there to take this horse a little bit seriously in here. We'll see what kind of trip he can work out. It's worth noting that he didn't make the lead right away when he won off the layoff this year. Up next is the 6, Fidelet Caillou. This horse is, I think, going to be really dangerous in here. And he's another one who just, we'll see how he handles the cutback and distance, because all 4 of his turf starts have been going longer. And listen, he's run really well in all of them. 2 wins, 2 seconds. He did break his maiden sprinting on the dirt. So we know that he can go short. We'll just see what kind of trip he can pull here as he cuts back for his 3rd start off of a little bit of a lag. We're going to look at his most recent, so he could have pulled any one of his replays because he's run really well in all of his turf starts. But let's look at the Jersey Derby right now. This is a decent field. This horse got bumped at the start, wound up contesting the pace. He wanted to secure the inside. A horse went with him. He had to race this horse all the way, puts him away. The 2 favorites are coming after him through the stretch. This horse is dead game. He does not want to be passed. He fights it out all the way down to the stripes, and he just gets out finished by a couple of noses. This is a really good performance. The figures are trending the right way. They're still not, up to the level quite of the favorite down on the rail, but this horse has run some good races. He's got speed. He's run well without the lead in the past. It's all about whether he handles the cutback and distance, but this horse is good, and I think he's better actually than he looks on paper. The number 7 is Mama's Dream. We'll just see what happens with Mama's Dream. This horse has run once on turf. That was early in his career when he was still with trainer Mike Maker. That race was a complete disaster. He did not run well in there, and since then it's been maiden claiming races and all dirt for him. And he finally did break through with a pretty decent effort. 2 starts back, maiden 30 claimer. He was a huge favorite in there. A race he almost, would have had to fall down to lose at 1-9, and he got the job done easily. Claimed out of that race by Rudy. 1 start for Rudy, going a mile in the slop. He didn't run well that day. They're going to try back to turf with the mare. He is bred to handle turf, and he is a better horse now than he was when he tried it as a 2-year-old, but he's still kind of hard to endorse. And here, Joel Rosario will take the mount there. The number 8 is Courtly Banker, lightly raced for Barclay Tag. This horse is a contender in this race. Debuted in an open maiden special weight on the all-weather surface at Gulfstream Park. Ran well that day, right up close to the pace, but on the outside, doing some chasing. Didn't really ever give up the fight in there, and settled for 3rd at the end. That was an okay performance. 2nd start with New York breds, going a mile on the turf here. He had the outside post. They just raced forward with him, put him on the lead up the backstretch, and he cut that pace, but he worked a little bit harder, around the final turn to hold on there. He was still there in the final furlong, but you could tell that he really wasn't going to hold on, and he got outfinished by 2 shorter prices, 2 horses who, are pretty good, better lucky than good. The horse that won that race, that horse is fine. He got an inside run and closed it down. This horse ran fine to be 3rd that day. He's going to cut back for this. I think he's going to be okay going a little bit shorter, and I think there's a real chance that he moves forward in this race. This horse is far from impossible, and he might actually be a fair price. We'll see if he's 2nd or 3rd choice in here. But I certainly feel like he's a contender in here with forward to go for a really good trainer. Grand Opening is going to complete the field. This horse is really talented. 3 starts. Another horse has only run on dirt. 3 starts. Debuted in the Times Square division. That's a really strong race for these 3-year-old New York bred sprinters. And he was distant third. He never looked like he was going to win, but he ran fine to be third. Blew out maidens back at his Pimlico home base in his second start. They just ran him here last weekend up at Saratoga in the Mike Lee and the Slop. Didn't love the ride that he got that day. He probably wasn't beating Doc Sullivan anyway, but he didn't get a great ride in there, and he was very game to be second over that sloppy track going 7 furlongs. He's back quickly here, and he's switching to turf. And this horse is talented. The only issue that I have with him is that he just doesn't have any turf pedigree at all. Union Jackson has just not been a good turf sire. This is really all dirt on the bottom of this pedigree too. This horse can run. I don't really want to bet him on this surface switch, but there are things to like about him. And here, IRAD takes them out, and that it's a good thing, obviously, but it probably only hurts your price here. If you wanted to bet this horse, I would want to get a pretty good price on him. We'll see how they wind up betting it, though. He's talented. He's just not my kind of horse as far as the surface switchers go, because I don't love his pedigree. So that's the field for this, really good running of this spectacular bid division of the Stallion Series. We'll get the picks up there now because, again, the Big Torpedo, he's way the horse to beat, and I suspect he's going to be really tough in here. I want to take one shot against him with that 6. Fiddle Caillou, who I like all of his turf races. He was really, really good in the Jersey Derby last time. I think he's got enough speed to handle this cutback. He's going to pick up Castellano for this. We'll see what kind of trip he works out. I'm going to go 6-1 in here. Really good addition, though. Really interesting running of this Stallion Series race. A lot going on. A lot of surface switches. A lot of speed. Good race. It goes early on the card on Sunday at the Belmont at the Big A meeting. Race number 3. Approximate post time is 2:03 Eastern time. Good luck.